Well, Friday and Saturday's temperatures were very inviting. And so me and Barbie made our way outside as much as we were able to. Not only did we get in our first bike rides of the season, but we also spent some time wandering around our yard. I bet some of you folks did some wandering around in your yard. Maybe not cleaning necessarily, but you might have done some wandering around in your yard. And one of the things we were doing as we were wandering around our yard is to see if our daffodils had started to bloom. Well, they haven't started to bloom yet, but they're certainly up. I mean, they're just right there. They're just saying, give me just a little bit more temperature and one more day of sun, and I'm going to pop through there, and I'm going to have these beautiful flowers. It's one of the great things I think about spring, seeing all the new life. You have the daffodils, the Easter lilies coming to bloom, and soon we're going to have buds on all those trees, and then there'll be leaves, and there'll be all kinds of flowers blooming in your yards and your neighbors' yards, and even in the side ditches as you go along the interstates. You'll hear birds singing, and there'll be spring lambs and other animals come to earth and to our world. When you see those things, you know it's springtime in the heartland, right? And what seemed like a really, really long winter to me, at least, it's springtime in Indiana indeed. And soon, it will be summertime. It will. Even though it doesn't seem like it. And as soon as summertime gets here and the spring starts getting here, one of the things that we'll find out is we'll see all kind of creepy, crawly, flyy, whitey things around, right? One of those you might see is a caterpillar. I don't know if you can remember from your childhood watching caterpillars crawl across the concrete or across a dirt pile and how slowly they move and they creep around. And I even sometimes would pick a caterpillar up and put on my palm of my hand and watch them move along. Anybody done that? Yeah, I bet a bunch of you have. And we all know the story with caterpillars, right? Eventually, at some point, they weave themselves into a cocoon and they're closed off from the world, and then they magically hatch themselves out into a beautiful butterfly. The Greek language uses the word metamorphosis, a change, a transformation, a new being. And what we get to enjoy in the springtime is this metamorphosis, this transformation, this new being, this changing, as we see butterflies flying around the fields and around our yards, as we see daffodils and Easter lilies and other types of flowers popping up, and bulbs coming up out of the ground as flowers, and trees with leaves and new birth. It's not only calming to see all those things and be outside again, but it's also really majestic, even to an old guy like me. Now, having said all that, I would like to share with you now the Gospel according to St. John, the 20th chapter, verses 1 through 18. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and said to them, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him." Then Peter and the other disciple set out and went toward the tomb. The two were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent down to look in and saw the linen wrappings lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came following him and went into the tomb. He saw the linen wrappings lying there and the cloth that had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. Then the other disciple who reached the tomb first also went in, and he saw and believed. For as yet they did not understand the scripture that he must rise from the dead. Then the disciples returned to their homes. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head and the other at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, they have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him. When she said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there. But she did not know it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? For whom are you looking? Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. Jesus said to her, Mary. And she turned and said in Hebrew, Rabboni, which means teacher. And Jesus said to her, Do not hold on to me, because I have not yet ascended into the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, I have seen the Lord. And she told them that he had said these things to her. The purpose of the Easter story is about victory celebration that tells about the power of God. The power that took the dead body of Jesus and transformed him, metamorphosized him, transfigured him into this glorious resurrected body. The purpose of the Easter story is the telling the truth that God can create life out of what seems to be apparent death. The purpose of the Easter story is to convince us that creepy, crawly caterpillars can be transformed into butterflies. The purpose of the Easter story is to convince us that not only are there miracles in nature, but there are miracles in history, in my history and in your history. The purpose of the Easter story is to convince us that there might become a time in our lives when we too will be transformed, and something utterly magnificent and beautiful will be there instead. The purpose of the Easter story is to tell us that the good and glorious promises of God have the power to take over death and transform it into life. Those are the things that the Easter story relates to us. Now this morning when I got up, I went outside to see what the temperature was like. And I can tell you right now, with the jacket I have on after having already preached once, I'm perspiring. It's a little bit warmer than I had anticipated. But I looked around, and of course I did not see any caterpillars. A little bit early for them. We still have some snow on the ground some places. So it's a little bit early for them. But I did see the daffodils, but I couldn't pick any and bring them in because the flowers haven't quite bloomed yet. They're close, but they haven't quite bloomed yet. And I guess I could have dug up a couple of daffodils, but then we'd have had this ugly bulb. And I assume none of you folks probably dig up daffodils and then put the bulb's head up in your flower vase to have displayed, right? Nobody does that, huh? Because they're brown, they're dirty, and they don't look particularly great. It would be ridiculous to do that. But we do know that those dirty brown bulbs that are buried in the ground here very soon are going to be transformed into an exquisitely beautiful flower. Right? They don't look anymore like that old dirty brown bulb that we buried. And so the good news is, the great news is pretty obvious about Easter, that God transforms these bulbs, these brown, dirty bulbs, into beautiful daffodils. That God transforms caterpillars into butterflies. That God transforms the dead body of Jesus into a living spiritual body. That God transforms the human body, like a seed planted into the ground, into a resurrected spiritual body. It's no big deal for God, because God does it a million times a day. God spends time transforming life, transforming things that we think are dead into things that are living. I think it's equally as true that during this Easter time, this Resurrection Sunday, that one of the lessons that we need to learn is we need to have the belief like a child. We tell tales at our holidays about some characters that may or may not be fictitious. But our children believe those wholeheartedly, right? I don't know if you're familiar with the commercials that are running now, have been during the NCAA tournament, where there's 4 children sitting with a gentleman. He asks them these questions, and in the naivety of those children, the things they say, crack me up. But I think one of the most recent one is Nikki Flash. Why Nikki? Because it rhymes with flash. And all the children just kind of sit there close. That childlike faith, that childlike being that we're asked to hold on to on a day like this, on Resurrection Sunday, so we can have that naivete, that simple understanding that miracles happen. That transformation of caterpillars to butterflies really happens. That dirty brown bulbs turn into beautiful flowers. That these barren trees that we have outside will soon have beautiful leaves on them. That our earthly bodies will be transformed into spiritual bodies. We almost have to be childlike to understand that going on. I want to share with you a fable, so to speak, that tells about a caterpillar. So it's a caterpillar story. This caterpillar was living on a Persian rug. Everybody knows what a Persian rug is, right? Big, beautiful, expensive rugs with many colors. But if you know anything about caterpillars, you know that caterpillars move really slowly, right? They're not speed demons. They're not jackrabbits or deer. They move really slowly. So for the caterpillar, it could really only see one color at a time. And so as it moved along, it thought, boy, my world is really great. Here's this beautiful red, and then later on, here's this beautiful blue, and then this deep violet, and this purple, and this yellow, and this green. But the caterpillar still only saw one color at a time. And the caterpillar said, look at that color, isn't it beautiful? What a great world I live in, where I can see this blue. And then later on saying the same thing, but I can see that red. And the caterpillar lived on this Persian rug for, it was like 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, which is a long time maybe for us to think a caterpillar living there, but in the world of God, simply a blink of the eye, right? Well, eventually, as we know, caterpillars don't stay caterpillars. And so the caterpillar climbed off of the Persian rug and went into that hibernation state, weaved itself into a cocoon, and stayed there for a while. But eventually, the cocoon split open, and out from the cocoon came a magnificent butterfly, and it flew into the air higher and higher and higher. And as it did, it looked down at that Persian rug. And from the height it was at, it could see all the colors, all at one time. Everything from its past and its present, and see all of existence, a bigger picture of the way things are and how things have been transformed because having went to that cocoon. Easter is inviting us to believe in these type of powers, the powers of God to create a magnificent new life. One that is more full, not one that has just red and green or yellow only, but one that has all the colors of the spectrum, one that has fullness of life, one that transforms the caterpillars and the butterflies, transforms human bodies into heavenly bodies, who can transform our lives. Whatever it is that bears on you this day, we all have our troubles, our transgressions, our woes. We have those things that bring us down, that keep us from living for God fully. God has the power to transform us. That's what this day is about. You can be transformed right now, right this day. God offers that to us. You can be metamorphosized, changed, transformed. Easter is the invitation to do that. To have that faith as a little child, to understand that you can be changed. Sometimes that's hard for us to do because as adults, we get dug in pretty deep. We get our feet dug into the dirt pretty deep. My oldest son was telling me yesterday he was taking his dogs for a run along the beach in Ireland, and it was low tide, so they went out further, which was a mistake because Darwin got stuck in the mud up to its belly. And so as Andy went out to get Darwin out, all of a sudden Andy was in mud up to his knee and couldn't get out. But the reason I'm telling you that, one thing is funny, but the other reason is that's kind of how we are. We get stuck in the mud, right? And we just can't change. But God offers to us this Resurrection Sunday that we can change, that we can be transformed. Our life can be different than what it is. Not only here, but for all eternity. It's Resurrection Sunday. I hope God has brought hope into your life. I hope this faith community, the people who sit here with you on Sundays, who fellowship with you at meals, who work beside you as we serve our neighbors, I hope they have brought you hope in your life. I hope this Jesus, the story of this Christ who was beaten and died and raised from the dead, brings you hope in your life on this Resurrection Sunday. Be at peace and know that God is with you. This is the Word of God for the people of God.
Praise God.